So good morning and welcome to the iCons informational webinar. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We have a lot of first and second year students from UMass joining us from almost 30 different majors, from College of Engineering, Public Health, Computer Science, CNS, we have Eisenberg, and we also have some social and behavioral sciences. Plus, a lot of you are double majoring in majors in HFA as well. In addition, you come from all over the world and all over the country. So thank you all for taking an hour of your time and meeting with us today. iCons is a very exciting program, and I hope you learn a lot about it today and you get your questions asked. If you don't get your questions asked or you think of something, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We started this webinar last year at the height of the pandemic, and so I felt like everything was new, but perhaps you're all Zoom experts at this point, but the Q&A is at the bottom of your screen. You can please post your question there. We will do our best to answer any of your questions that you've already asked during registration. We'll take care of that. My name is Wesley Dunham. I am Strategic Communication and Program Manager for iCons. I run the day-to-day operations, the advising, and I will be your main contact, your triage point of contact for any issues you may have. If you have questions about advising, about classes, about tracks, about a career, please let me know. You can email me. I've been emailing you several times, and you can email that icons@cns.umass.edu address. Today, we are joined by Scott Arbach. He is the Mahoney Family-Sponsored Executive Director and a Professor of Chemistry and Chemical Engineering. So I thank Scott. He will be giving you the run through a lot of the nuts and bolts of iCons. We also have 3 students, either rising seniors or rising juniors, here with us today, and they'll be giving you a student perspective and their personal experience going through the program and what they have done and what things they've received from being in iCons. We also have an iCons instructor, Allie Hunter, who teaches our iCons 2 Biomedicine Biosystems course. She joins us today, so thank you all to our panelists. And the goal today is to give you an overview of iCons, which Scott Arbach will do, and also to give you an overview from the panelist perspective. As I said, we have instructors and students who will be talking and answering any questions you may have. You should hopefully see the panelists on your screens or as they talk, so you get to know them by names. I went over the Q&A. And I believe you should be able to ask a question anonymously. If you feel like that is important to you, please do so. We're now going to go into doing a brief intro from all our panelists, and you'll get to hear a little bit more about them, especially if you have any specific questions for them. So first, I'd like Audrey, if you are able to say hello.
Of course. Good morning, everyone. My name is Audrey Gabriel. I'm a rising junior here at UMass, majoring in public health and microbiology on the pre-med track. I'm originally from the Philippines, but I grew up in Peabody, Massachusetts. And yeah, I'm part of the 10th cohort in iCons on the biomedicine track.
Wonderful. We're now going to go to Sean.
Hello, I am a rising senior, biochem and physics double major. My hometown is Beverly, Massachusetts, and I'm also on the iCons biomedicine track.
Wonderful. And Brady.
Hi everyone, I'm Brady. I'm a rising junior. I'm civil engineering major, also on the environmental track within that, and then I'm on the renewable energy track within iCons, and I missed something.
Where
I'm from Londonderry.
Londonderry, New Hampshire?
Londonderry, New Hampshire, yeah.
Wonderful. Now, Allie Hunter.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Allie Hunter, and I am an instructor in iCons. I teach the I2B course. My background is in microbiology, especially as it pertains to sort of agricultural and environmental microbiology. I actually come from Pennsylvania originally, but I was a New England transplant for now almost 25 years. So I feel like I'm a New Englander at this point.
Wonderful. Thank you. So those were our intros. I'm now going to turn it. I'm going to have Scott Auerbach introduce himself, and then he can go over his slides. Sorry about that, Scott.
No problem. No problem. Well, thank you so much, Wesley. Thank you again, everybody, the panelists and the audience. So I'm Scott Auerbach. I'm a professor in the chemistry department and also in the chemical engineering department. I'm actually starting my 27th year here at UMass. Time flies when you're having fun. And the teaching that I do blends physics and chemistry. I'm a physical chemist, and the research that I do blends chemistry, computers, because I'm a computational chemist, and nanotechnology. So that gives you a sense of the interdisciplinary approaches that we have. So Wesley, would you like me to launch right into the slides then?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, great. So thank you everybody for the chance to share this introduction to iCons. iCons stands for Integrated Concentration in STEM. And what I hope you get from this intro is three things. What is iCons? Why is it important to you? And perhaps most important is why should you apply to iCons? So at the end of the day, iCons starts with a recognition that every real world problem can be a great educational opportunity. And we know there's no shortage of problems, whether it's about, energy, the challenge in generating clean energy. 80% of our energy is still coming from burning fossil fuels, mounting garbage, the specter of climate change. And let's not even talk about, trying to cure cancer or deal with the COVID pandemic. No shortage of problems. And these problems can sometimes feel daunting. You've been hearing about them for a long time. You probably want to get to college, and you are in college. You probably, when you're in college, want to start working on these problems. The question is, how, given these daunting problems, can you take steps today? And so the iCons approach is about diverse teams of students working on today's big problems. And so whether, for example, we're thinking about a biomedicine problem. When we launched the program back in 2010, it was cholera in Haiti because of an earthquake in Haiti. And we just had another earthquake in Haiti. And so this is actually a picture of the UMass physician working with some patients back in 2011 so that they could get some fresh water and deal with cholera. So when we're thinking about diverse teams, we're thinking about an interdisciplinary approach to solving problems. And I'm going to actually bring up a laser pointer here. There it is. So whether it's life scientists who understand disease, physical scientists like chemists who can make cures, engineers who bring their important, design-based approaches, earth scientists and geoscientists who have a bigger picture, who knows, maybe food scientists, psychologists, people in business and finance. We need a diversity of thought in order to solve these problems. And that's one of the main ideas of how we deal with things in iCons. Now, it's not just biomedicine. That's one of the tracks in iCons. We have a second track in the field of energy, in renewable energy. And I could go through, for example, who wanted to make biofuels. Again, we need life scientists who understand biomass, chemists who understand how to deconstruct that, engineers, earth scientists who know where the biomass should be grown, et cetera, et cetera. We need diverse teams working on today's big problems. And soon, in the year 2024, we'll be opening up a third track in the integrated area of food, water, and climate. So if you join iCons now, you can help us to build that. So that's the crux of iCons, diverse teams of students working on today's big problems. The mission of iCons also is centered on diversity, producing a diverse generation of leaders. You want to see what the diverse generation of leaders looks like? Here you go. Diverse generation of leaders with that right mix of attitudes and skills needed to address these big problems. And a second and perhaps equally important aspect of the mission is to broaden the impact of iCons, this way of learning and this way of problem solving across education. So what are the sort of the special aspects of iCons that allow us to do it? Well, I've already mentioned the focus on real world problems. I've already mentioned the importance of interdisciplinary teams. What I haven't mentioned is the student-driven innovation aspect, that for you to really be able to sort of grab onto these problems, you need to choose the problems that you want to study, and you need to choose the ways you think it's important to solve them. So student-driven innovation, you're really sort of the boss in the iCons classroom. Then there's a unique 5-step innovation cycle: inception, engagement, research, create, and finally reflection. Reflection is such an important aspect of the work that we do in iCons. So those are the special aspects that make iCons icons. We have a word for that. We call it iconsy. So that's an adjective now. What are the outcomes? How will you change? Well, you're going to get a deeper kind of awareness of your own self as a problem solver, a situational awareness. When you get plunked into a problem, what's the problem to solve? What kind of help are you going to need? How are you going to start solving it? When do you know you're done? Skills in terms of leadership, leading innovation, communication, and collaboration. And then in terms of the concrete outcomes, many of our students publish papers, and some of our students actually start companies. And in the core of what makes iCons work is a culture that values human diversity and diversity of thought. Now, none of this happens on its own in a vacuum. We have great support, so we'd like to thank the support of the Mahoney family, which is the major sponsor of the iCons program, as well as the iCons Industry Consortium, which are companies that get iCons. They understand the value of this training, and they want to hire you as interns and full-time staff. So now the really sort of nuts and bolts question: how does it work in college? So I want to remind you there are 2 tracks in iCons, and you can come into iCons either as a first or a second year student. What I'm going to show you right now is if you come in as a first year student. So if you do, you apply to iCons in the fall of your first year. Here we are. And if you get in and you decide to come into iCons, you start iCons in the spring of your first year, working on case studies on problems of your choosing, learning how to work in a team, learning how to work on problems where the answer is not in the back of the book, because there probably is not a book. Then it's 1 course per year for the first 3 years, followed by a year-long senior either research project or design project. In iCons 2, you focus on advanced communication skills, communicating as a STEM worker, communicating to other fields, and communicating to non-STEM workers. There are 2 sections, one in biomedicine, the other in energy. iCons 3 is about getting into the lab, taking all the ideas from iCons 1 and 2, putting them into practice in the lab. Again, there's 2 sections, a biomedicine and an energy lab section. And again, year-long advanced study. Now, we know that many of you are very busy with either having extracurricular activities or maybe a major and a minor, maybe a double major. We know that many of the engineers have very busy schedules. And so the question is, how can you fit this? And so the magic of iCons is these courses count for stuff you already need to take so that it helps you to fit it into your schedule. I'm going to go into detail on that in a couple slides. So as I've said, you can come in iCons in year 1 or year 2. This is what it looks like if you come in year 2. So let's say you want to get a year of college under your belt just to, get your feet on the ground. That's totally awesome. Then you would apply to iCons in the fall of year 2, and then this is what iCons look like. So the only difference is you take iCons 2 and 3 in the spring of your 3rd year. Now, with respect to how all this stuff fits, I want to make 3 comments. First of all, relationship to the Commonwealth Honors College. Many of our students are in the Commonwealth Honors College, and for that reason, all the iCons courses are built to carry the iCons H, so they satisfy honors level requirements. However, super important, you do not need to be in the Honors College to get into iCons. If you're in it, great. If you're not in it, great. Diversity of student population. The second point is completing icons fulfills a bunch of other stuff. So icons 1 counts for a general education course with the interdisciplinary flag. Icons 2 counts for your junior writing. Icons 3 will count for an upper level elective, and the combination of icons 3 and 4 counts for the required integrative experience. In a sense, you could view the entire icons program as a big integrative experience. My third point is I just want to emphasize that icons 4 requires a 6-credit advanced study, either an honors thesis or a senior design project, or even something else of your choosing. And we are here to help you figure that out. Now, I said we, who's we? Here's the team that's going to support you. Myself, Dr. Justin Furman, who's the director for academics, Wesley Dunham, who's one of the panelists on this webinar, and Megan Pete, who's in charge of external relations for icons to help you get internships and jobs. So please don't hesitate to come to us if you have any questions. Now, in terms of who are the icons students, I really want to focus on this. So who's eligible to apply? As we said, first and second year students with either a STEM or an Eisenberg School of Management major, that's over 5,000 students. We typically get about 150 applications each year, and we typically accept about 70 students each year, give you a sense. As we've said, we really emphasize the importance of having a diverse student body. And this gives you a sense of the faculty inputs we've had from a bunch of different departments. An emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I want to emphasize here inclusive teaching. So the icons faculty, and actually Allie Hunter is our resident expert on inclusive teaching practices because she's held workshops with the icons faculty on how can we change our teaching so that everybody knows that they 110% belong in the icons courses and in their STEM courses and in all their courses, a sense of inclusivity, a sense of belonging. And in terms of the output from that, we've graduated 8 classes. We're starting today, the 12th year of the program, very exciting. We've had outstanding career placement. So more than 90% of our alums within the first year have gotten their first choice of internship, grad school, or job. Many of them have won impressive national awards, and all of them are welcome to join the Icons Alumni Network. And they often call that Icons 5, which is the real world. And so what that does is it's a network that helps you to land jobs, help you understand what grad school is like, and also to spread the impact of icons. And as if that were not enough, there's lots of other sort of perks of joining icons. We've talked about the career aspect, the combination of the industry consortium, companies that are looking for icon students, and also the alumni network. There's also a peer-to-peer networking space. It's in the Letterly Grad Research Tower, room 432. It's the iSpace. And now that we're back on campus, hallelujah, we're going to be able to use this space. So come to this room, hang out with other icon students, and start to develop those kinds of relationships that are going to last a lifetime. There's also opportunities for getting your work seen and heard, for example, through the Icons Student Podcast. This is an entirely student-run thing. It's sort of a spinoff of the Icons, program where students are honing their skills in communication, talking about the problems that are important to them. And there's also, finally, Icons Research Fellowships. And those fellowships, if you have an idea and you need some funding, let us know. So I've just blabbed on for a while about icons, but you definitely want to hear from students. You're going to be hearing from students in about a second once I stop blabbing, but there's also an opportunity to see this video called the Icons Experience. It's on the Icons website, and it gives you yet another window into what icons can mean for you. So that's my spiel. This is a summary. Icons is a certificate in real world problem solving, where we're working on problems in biomedicine and energy and really beyond. Whatever problem is getting you at the edge of your seat. It's student driven, so you get to pick the problems that you want to work on. fits within your major because the courses count. You're working with other students across STEM and Eisenberg School of Management, meeting new friends, building your networks, and admission by application. So if you want to get in, you gotta apply. Here are basically the 3 questions that we ask you. Why are you interested in icons? What's the previous experience that you've had that creates that interest? So that's about the past, about the future. How does icons help you advance you in your career? And how about the present? What's a big problem happening now and the role of STEM to solve that? Here are some important deadlines. So we want to help you succeed in applying to icons. So we've got an application support session. We've got 2 of them. We'll be running by Zoom. The application deadline is Tuesday, October 12th. We won't accept applications after that. So please make the deadline. Note that. We're going to have a fall workshop. We don't have that completely lined up yet. So please look to the icons website for details, but it's going to be an amazing speaker. We'll announce the admission decisions on November 12th. And if you decide to join icons, we're going to launch the new cohort, the 12th cohort, on Saturday, December 4th. Please look at the icons website for all information. And once again, thank you everybody for the chance to introduce icons. And I'm sure you have a bunch of questions. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. We do have some questions, Scott. I'm going to hold your questions till the end for the Q&A session. I do want to introduce or have Allie Hunter, who already has introduced herself, to now chat about the instructor perspective. So I'm going to add you here, Allie. So take it away.
All right. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the I2B experience from my perspective. So I think I visualize I2B as a very student-centered exploration of real-world problems, coupled with like explicit skill building for scientific writing and communication, both for general public audiences and for the scientific and academic audience. In my course, we explicitly weave through our work discussions about STEM diversity and inclusion. And you'll find that in my class, we often sort of challenge the STEM status quo to really activate ourselves as change agents for a STEM world that we want to see and live in. We spend a lot of time building community in our classroom, so that by the time it's time for you to work in teams on a fixed project of your choosing, we all have a common understanding of what equitable group work looks like, how to carry it out, how we can draw from our group diversity to make our problem solving even better. We do that by spending a lot of time early in the class and often in the class in working in small groups and learning how to do effective peer review by engaging in activities where student voices are centered. And we always, in my class, we're always acknowledging our identities and our social identities and how they sort of feed into our group collaborations to make our STEM problem solving even better. In the past, I2B students have worked on a variety of problems that incorporated many different fields, many different collaborations, from medical and public health side to microbiology, to the sort of sustainable agriculture and environmental studies side of things. The way that project teams and project topics come about is through a democratic voting process. You'll spend time in individual exploration in the beginning of the course until you're comfortable and found something that you want to put forth and pitch to the rest of the class as a project that we should focus on. And so through a system of voting, we settle into about 6 project topics, and then students actually choose the teams that they want to work on under those topics. What else? Some specific examples of topics from recent course history have been like novel approaches to antimicrobial resistance. That's often a theme that students kind of work under, and that's taken the shape in the form of like discovering novel compounds to treat pathogenic diseases, to looking at something more like the use of devices that are already impregnated with antimicrobial agents, or they themselves made of something that has antimicrobial properties. Had projects that looked at feeding cows different diets to reduce the methane that their rumen bacteria output. And then in the time of COVID, have had some really interesting projects around, you know, this pandemic, issues around a pandemic, specifically COVID, or just more broadly, like public health projects and like socio-psychological projects, thinking about human behavior during pandemics. So in summary, I think I2B supports a lot of student interest in projects and gets us all thinking about broader issues of STEM diversity and inclusion and social justice. And at the same time, equips us with the skills and the communication skills and writing skills that we need to communicate science to all audiences. So that's my spiel about I2B.
Wonderful. Allie, I did have several questions ahead of time specific to the computer science major. And if you're able to briefly just discuss how a computer science major specifically, although this could, you know, your philosophy will have to do with a lot of different majors, how they are integrated into what could be seen as really science heavy, life science heavy class. Like, how does a computer science person fit in?
Yeah, actually, I do have an example. Like, I've had a few computer science majors in the class, and a recent example is that there was a student who was a computer science major, and they actually led their project. Their project got pushed forward, and it was about COVID, and it was a modeling project. The student team decided to look at COVID in the sense of like how different countries and or different like groups of people were tackling the early, this was back when we first went remote due to COVID, how different models for, you know, stopping the spread, how different countries responded, and they were going to do a comparative study using heavy computer modeling. So I think there's definitely space in iCons, even in iCons 2B, which sounds like it's bio, that no, we really are looking to do like these very, you know, interdisciplinary projects, and a computer science student would very much fit in with their peers, especially in bringing in these ideas around like bioinformatics, large data sets, big data, and having that aspect feed into being a facet of the project that the students pursue.
Wonderful, thank you. Again, just to remind you, if you have any questions for any of our panelists, you can post it in the Q&A down at the bottom of your screen. So thank you very much, Allie, for you know, giving us that perspective. And if we have any questions for you at the end, I'll let you know. I'd now like to introduce Audrey, and let me spotlight you. There you are. So welcome and thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Like I said, my name is Audrey. I'm a junior and I'm an iCons. Just a little bit about kind of like the perspective of iCons from a student. I'm in the 10th cohort, which is kind of like your entry year. They call them cohorts. You get a name to your cohort too. Mine was Planet X, the 10th planet, which was kind of cool. It's always kind of quirky and STEM based. And yeah, I was a freshman when I came into iCons, and that was the year that we transitioned to COVID. So I had a mix of both the in-person work that you do at the Integrative Learning Center and online group work. So really flexible with what we do. It was very interesting to transition. I'm now on the biomedicine track, but I've worked on a huge variety of projects from my first to my second year, from looking at how students, their garbage like patterns and how they compost and recycle by literally counting garbage bins, to making projections of how COVID-19 is going to spread under different AQI conditions. So definitely an emphasis on interdisciplinary work. And another really interesting experience that kind of made me squirm at first as a first year was that there's really no hand holding from professors. No one's going to tell you an answer, because there really isn't a correct one, because it's so creative and you're thinking of these solutions yourself. And that can be frustrating at first, but it really, really like hardened me up as a student and taught me to be like self-sufficient in asking the right questions. You can definitely ask for guidance always, but you're going to come to your conclusions yourself. And it really helped me as a scientist in the other labs that I was going to take. And they've been a breeze, like with microbiome lab and orgo lab. So that's kind of how it plays into the student experience. I've also learned so many different ways to communicate science to non-scientists, whether it's like papers, PowerPoints, presentations, but also more innovative ways to do so. I was in Ali's class last semester, and we focused on like the better poster, which is modeling new ways to make a scientific poster so more people can understand it, to academic minutes, which is kind of modeling like a podcast style, but really succinct and in ways that people find very interesting. So not only have I like learned all of these skills, I'm still continuing to learn. So I'm going to be entering my third year now on the biomedicine track and progressing into work more specific to my research interests, which I'm still trying to narrow down. There's so many things. And that's okay. But I've gotten to tackle a lot of those global issues that are increasingly relevant. Like last year, I focused on nanoparticle research to solve antibiotic resistant infections. And so that really involved a lot of my microbiome background, but a lot of my fellow group members' hard science background with physics and chemistry and understanding like how nanoparticles work, which I didn't know, but now I do. So you learn a lot in a lot of things. So how iCons fits into my major. At this point, I'm pretty sure I'm triple dipping, which is okay because it really does cover a lot of things. Because I am doing like the dual degree, which is no different from a double major. It's 2 pieces of paper instead of 1, and pre-med and the honors college. It's a bulky load, but iCons has helped me condense all of them into one succinct like course list for the rest of my time in undergrad. It's covered my junior year writing for both majors, my thesis and integrative experience for the honors college, and it's covered my social science requirements too for public health, because it's a social science. You're talking to people, you're doing a lot of group work. You should expect to meet a lot of new people with each project that you do. So yeah, and then something kind of unique about my iCons experience, which was touched upon before, is that I'm a person of color and first generation in college in iCons, and it's been one of the more welcoming circles that I've had as a scientist or budding scientist so far. I do feel welcome in it, and it's one of the first places we've gotten to talk about those sort of problems and issues and barriers in science and ways to address it. So that's one thing. And also, it kind of plays into your other interests on campus. I know I'm biomedicine, but the work that we did on the renewable energy track was really interesting to me. So I am now the Secretary of Sustainability for undergraduate student government. So really fun, really diverse. I'm also a tour guide on campus, so if you do have any questions just about school in general, you can always email me. I can drop my email below. But that's just a little bit about me and iCons.
Wonderful, thank you. Audrey, you talked a little bit about how the requirements have helped you out in the dual degree and things like that. When it comes, which is good for a sort of a macro view, when it comes to a micro view of workload and time commitment, is iCons, is it additional work on top of your course load? And second part of that is, are the classes, are they different than a typical UMass undergrad class where this is going to be tough for a student to do?
Okay, so to answer the first question about just general workload, I don't mean to be like quippy or anything, but it just does fluctuate. It will change at different points in the semester. But what I will say is that it just changes depending on if you have a project going on currently or not. And what it does change is how much time you'll be spending on like group work. And a lot of times that's built into class, so there's really no need for extra hours spent on top of course load. But there are times where you're going to have to do like preparation work for that class time. So I would say anywhere from 2 to 3 hours of extra time. But if you look at like how many hours you're supposed to spend studying per credit, it takes up all of the like supposed study time. There's not going to be any exams or like root memorization that you're doing for this class. So it kind of translates really well. I found personally the workload to be super manageable, especially my freshman year and especially my sophomore year, because it kind of just, it's a class. It's not an extracurricular that's adding on top of your workload. It's just the class that you take. So I wouldn't call it extra until you're getting into like group meetings outside of class where you have to make the PowerPoints together, make those posters together. And those can be anywhere from an hour and a half extra time.
Right.
And then what was the second question? How is it different or more difficult?
Is it any different than our other classes in the sense of workload and time commitment?
In sense of workload and time commitment, no. It's just like any other class where you're going to have projects and you're going to have small tasks to bring in, and it fluctuates from week to week. But it is different in that you're kind of going to have to meet people. I know there are some classes you expect to just sit there and get through it and maybe passively learn, but you're going to learn a lot by talking and by asking questions, and that's super encouraged.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And if we have any other questions at the end, I will let you know. So thank you so much. I'm now going to pivot to Sean. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, so like Audrey, I am also dual degree. My two majors are biochemistry and physics. And I think that the most important thing for me in the iCons program is that not all departments are equal in how they treat their students and how they design the student experience. And not all departments support their students equally. So having that iCons sort of additional support network is really great for students that may seek extra research support or want to do independent learning, or for whatever reason feel that their educational needs are not being met within their major. I think it's really great for that. The other thing I would say is that if you engage with Scott saying it's a student-driven program with the same level of cynicism that I did coming into it, which is that I just didn't believe it because so many courses and so many things will claim to be student-driven or participant-driven and just don't genuinely engage at that level. I will say that iCons does a really good job of that. So it was already last year, I worked on an internship project to help redesign iCons 3 biomedicine because we sort of realized it wasn't meeting the same learning goals as the renewable energy lab. And then last spring, I got to do a pilot version of that program, doing our own research project and working in a very independent setting to meet those research goals. And I think that that's an experience you wouldn't get in any other course or any sort of major because it was very student driven. We weren't given a syllabus or a list of learning goals. We developed our own learning goals based on what we wanted to do and what we wanted to accomplish. And we developed our own research goals based on what resources we could get and what we wanted to study. And I think that that experience is so important for students looking to do graduate school or industry, or really anywhere that they might have to do research or independent thinking. And it's a unique way to get that experience. In terms of workload, it's been very manageable, which is a diplomatic word, I suppose. But you know, I'm an honors college student. I'm a dual degree student. I've worked in a research lab for 3 years. I did 2 seasons of marching band on campus, and I never felt that iCons was something that was overwhelming or really difficult to do, especially because you do have to do your junior year writing anyways. You do have to do an integrative experience. If you're in the honors college, you do have to write a thesis. And in fact, the student-driven nature of the courses actually allows you a lot more flexibility. I remember when we went online for iCons 2 with Scott, I went back to working full time. So I was taking 20 credits and working 50 hours a week. And I felt like iCons was one of the courses where I felt totally comfortable saying, like, I cannot meet this deadline. You know, I need an extension, I need extra support. And I never felt like there was any stigma against asking, or there was any support that I wouldn't receive if I needed it.
Great. We had one question, and this is, I think I understand. The question is how iCons will help you in your major. And I'm curious, I think the theory of this is, are you able to take back, you know, from an iCons class, what are you able to bring into your major to help you, you know, think differently, see differently, or just, you know, be in your major? Are you able to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so well, I think there are 2 answers to that, right? There's the logistical perspective, which is it does fulfill a lot of your requirements for your major. So in that way, you can sort of bring that back with you, which is the boring part of that answer, I think. But also, if you're in the honors college or you're doing an engineering program, the expectation is that you write a thesis or develop a capstone project, and not all departments support their students well in pursuing that. I think that without the iCons program, a lot of honors college students find themselves learning in the traditional classroom environment for 3 years, and then being told, now go do your own research with very little preparation for it. And they can struggle to do that in a lot of cases. But the sort of group learning and the individual like research experience that you get in terms of both the hard skills that you develop in the lab courses and the soft skills, like how do you ask a research question and how do you develop ways to answer that question, are really helpful no matter what your major is if you have to write a thesis or want to work in a research lab. But they're also good to bring into those lab courses you may have to take for your major, which you will find are not as student-driven as the iCons experience, but a lot of those skills that you learn are still transferable.
Great.
I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I think that was great. Thank you so much. All right. Well, again, if you have any questions, we'll have a little time at the end. So please put those in the Q&A. We're now going to shift to Brady. And so again, thank you, Sean, and take it away, Brady.
Hello, I'm Brady. So I'm on the renewable energy track within iCons, as I mentioned. Like Audrey, we're in the same cohort, so I'm the 10th cohort. So we kind of transitioned to COVID pretty early on. But our first project freshman year was working on microplastics within the drinking water at UMass, and that was a really cool project. It kind of intertwined like biomed and renewable energy, or like the environmentalist aspect of it all. And that was a really great project. And then we ended up going online and did some like data analysis projects, which definitely kept my attention during COVID, to say the least. It was like my favorite class. And then last year we had our technical writing course, which it was definitely a shift because I'm a civil engineering major. So we have to do like technical writing a lot, but they don't really put too much of an emphasis on like critical thinking and approaching things with like a scientific mindset. So being able to like handle that in class and actually develop those skills was something new and something so interesting. And it was amazing to like work with our group and develop those skills. And I know a lot of people have mentioned the interdisciplinarity of it all, but I also want to touch on the intradisciplinarity, because when you're working in a group, you really have to like grasp this person's talent and then like this person's talent and put them together. And then that's how you get a really beautifully working machine, and you get like amazing results with your research. So that was a really fun project. And we worked on researching anaerobic membrane bioreactors at UMass, so part of the carbon mitigation project. And it really kept me like passionate about my major as a civil engineering and environmental engineering major. Because sometimes when you're just taking those like technical classes that are just required for your major, you're like, well, like, why am I doing this? And the answer is research. Like, I want to be helping the world, and iCons is like an outstanding reminder of how that is done and what it takes to do that. Yeah.
Great. One question that came up ahead of time: how do you incorporate your personal interests and research interests into your team projects?
Yeah, so it's actually really fun. Like, I think one of my favorite processes of deciding on a project is talking with everyone, and everyone's just like brainstorming and spitting out their ideas. And it's just so creative, and I love it. So wait, what was the question? I got sidetracked.
Your personal and research interests.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
how do you bring yourself into your team?
So I'm really interested in renewable energy, like within my major. So the fact that like iCons has this little realm where I can practice that research as well. It's just like a personal passion of mine, and being able to work on that with other people is like really powerful, because they give their perspectives on things and what they think is important. And putting it all together, I'm just passionate about it. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Brady. So I'm going to open it up. That concludes the prospective panelist portion. I'd like to answer a few questions. Again, if you have anything that you've thought of, please put it in the Q&A. One question that came up was, this is going to be for Scott. We have a couple people that are junior transfers. Now that is can be seen as a broad broad term. I'm going to use it as, if you only have 2 years remaining at UMass, all things considered, you have 2 years remaining. Can you be in iCons?
Yeah. So unfortunately, the short answer is no. We've built iCons, so at the shortest period of time that you can realistically complete it is in 3 years. So I know that's not the answer that you wanted to hear. There are times where a student maybe has a switch in their focus, and if for whatever reason they end up taking more than 4 years to finish college, and I know that's not what you want to hear as a parent because that's expensive, but more than 4 years, then it becomes possible. But if you've got only 2 years, we don't have a pathway to complete iCons in only 2 years.
All right, thank you very much. This next question is going to be for Allie. Fingers crossed this scenario doesn't happen, but if we have to transition to remote, for us, it'll be again, and well, for everyone, because I'm sure they all went remote at some point. Like your class, how will your specific I2B class be different? What will you do?
So luckily we can speak from experience and say that it actually doesn't change much at all. The big picture is that it's not going to be different as far as all of this we've been talking about: student generated problems, democratic voting to get to project topics, inclusive group, small group work. It all transfers to the Zoom environment. And I've been able to test it out and try it out. So really, there's nothing going to be different about my teaching style, my co-teacher, Chris, her teaching style, all the group work, the student generated problems. We're able to do that. I've, add a bit of technology in using like Jamboards and Padlets to really facilitate us pretending we're still in a classroom, and opportunities to really be in a virtual classroom, meaning like we use Jamboards and we use Padlets so we can see what each other are working on, like building in time so that, you don't go off into a breakout room into the void. We use technology so that we can still all see what we're doing and come back and discuss what each other are doing. So really no big difference. The only thing absent is going to be like just us being in a space together, which is sad and unfortunate. But it really, you're going to get the same icons to be experienced from me for sure.
All right, thank you very much. That was good. Again, fingers crossed it doesn't happen. I'd like to ask any of the students, if you want to come off, if you have a thought, what resources, opportunities have you seen through your time in iCons that you believe will help you in the real world, or solving real world problems, or even just personally getting a job? Does anyone have a thought? I see Brady.
I would just say that last year, I felt as though I could really go to the instructors and like ask them questions about if we should approach the problem from this way or this way. And they were like very helpful with that. And they also were able to help us network with other people within the concept. Sorry, the dog is drinking water. And yeah, we were able to like network and talk to other instructors and professionals within the, it's so distracting, I'm sorry. Within like water resources was the example. We had our anaerobic membrane bioreactor project. At one point we were thinking about like a low temperature hot water situation. So Scott put us in touch with one of his colleagues at one point, right? Peer professional. And it was just amazing talking to someone who has been like working in the field for a long time, what problems they faced and stuff like that. And like, I didn't end up reaching out to him for an internship for the summer because I already had something lined up, but he offered it. So, I mean, things just roll your way if you're networking.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have anything to share on that topic? If not, that's fine. Oh, yep, sure.
Well, I think the one thing I would add is that the iCons program gives you the opportunity to get, the relevant experience that people talk about so much in job postings and graduate school applications. Depending on if you've ever taken your course labs for your major or not, you may or may not know this, but you may not learn much. And if you do, they really don't put a lot of emphasis on the experimental design and asking a research question and all these things that you have to become proficient in to actually do research. So I would say in that way, the iCons program does a good job of setting you up to gain those transferable skills that you can talk about and say, not only have I taken the same course labs that my peers have, but I have this other experience actually developing a research question and learning more about that research process, which I think is really important for whatever you do after graduation.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to take the next question because it's very quick and easy to answer, and several people have asked this, is iCons free? Are there any additional fees? And no, there is no additional cost. This is an academic program. It is part of UMass. You're already paying. So there is no additional fee for iCons. This question is for Scott. And during your talk, you talked about starting companies briefly. What support do you have? Is there any sort of entrepreneur, or dare I say innovator in residence or anything like that that might help?
Yes, that's a great question. So over the years, we have had a few student teams get so excited about the possibility of their project that they not only see it as a viable solution to solve a problem, but a possible market opportunity. And I'm thinking right now, for example, of a team in the biomedicine track that has come together and successfully competed for some funding to launch their company. And to support them, we do have a fellow named Jacob Lindemann, who is a local inventor, very interdisciplinary. He is the innovator in residence for iCons. We use the word, many programs use the word entrepreneur in residence. iCons is a little bit different in that everybody's engaged in some kind of innovation. Some students are interested in taking an idea to market. Other students want to convert it into a research project. It's all kind of innovation. And so it's a little bit more general idea. And Jacob is there. He's actually invented many technologies. And so he's ready, willing, and able to meet with any student or any team of students who thinks that they have an idea for innovation or entrepreneurship. He has the experience, he has the chops, and so he is there to help. And he's been very helpful for this team of students working on their biomedicine project, getting them ready for competitions and such.
Wonderful, great, thank you so much. I just posted a chat. We're getting close to the end, but there are just a couple more questions I'd love answered if people can stick around for a minute or two. I'll take this question. How many students are accepted? Scott said in his slide deck, we will be accepting 70 to 72 this year. We'll hope for 72. And were they able to graduate on time? I would say majority yes, and if they weren't, it was because of change in research and unrelated to iCons. But yes, typically our students do graduate on time. As we've said, the classes fit in with most schedules, so we should be okay with that. When do you declare your track, biomedicine and energy? I'll also take this one. On the application for iCons, as a first or second year student trying to get into the program, you will put down your track selection. Now, with that said, this does not mean you cannot change your track over time. Interests do change. It is a way to garner interest, and since our classes are separated by tracks, it just wouldn't be feasible to have 90% in one track, and therefore our classes would all get mixed up come the second year. So you will be choosing your track in the application, but you are not held to that your entire career. So I answered that one. And this is for any of the speakers. I'd like to go with the students. What's one memorable project you've completed in the past? Audrey, do you have anything?
I think my most memorable one was the counting garbage one. Had nothing to do with my track. I just remember being in the cafe. This was when everything was pre-COVID, just elbows deep in garbage. It was really cool. We got cool data from it.
Great. Anyone else have something fun that they worked on?
I have one. The anaerobic membrane bioreactor project, I think, is the most memorable one to date. Mostly because it's just like a really new concept to take like wastewater and like be able to make a biogas from the waste in it. And like as a civil wastewater, we love it. A lot of potential. It's potential water. Anyway. But the more memorable part of it was actually writing the paper and being holding yourself accountable for what you're including in the paper, time constraints and stuff like that, like how precise you need to be doing the calculations for the paper and stuff like that. And it was really rewarding to have a final project from that.
Wonderful. Sean, do you have one project you want to add?
Well, I'd say the most memorable for me in iCons would be doing the biomedicine pilot last spring, both because I had a lot of fun and it was the most recent one, so it's easy for me to remember. But it was something that I had experience doing, designing my own research question and setting out to answer it, but doing it in the context of helping to design a course and then doing it more in that sort of traditional classroom environment, but still student driven, was something that I was really excited about, not only because of the data, but because of having the program be that level of student driven I really wanted to see in it. It was very exciting for me.
Great. Thank you so much. So I'm going to ask Scott Arbeck to give us his final thoughts.
Yeah.
Scott?
Yeah, thank you so much. So first of all, thank you to all the panelists, the students, and the faculty for sharing your thoughts, your hopes and your dreams and your impressions. Thank you to all the audience members for coming and sharing this time and giving your questions. I just want to come back to where we started, which is the two big ideas of iCons is that every real world problem is a great educational opportunity, and the role of human diversity as probably the most important way to solve these problems. So that's something that is near and dear to our hearts. It's probably near and dear to yours. And so we hope that you'll consider applying to iCons because we need you. So thank you. Thank you for sharing this time.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Go UMass. Enjoy move-in.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.